I was thinking of this idea the other day. I was talking with somebody about this. We think of aliens as like creatures from the outer space, right? But there are things that exist on our planet already that are very alien. Like a great example is like take mycelium, like the mycelium network. You have this fungus that kind of uses like an internet, like World Wide Web, and they like communicate, and they have different species, and they're able to like chemically alter, such as our species, like the way our brain makeup operates and stuff. It's like, isn't that alien? Wouldn't that be considered alien, right?
Well, there may be more than one thing that's considered alien. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. You're right. And then they can, they do other plants do that as well. I mean, the fungus is all underground and they interconnect and can kind of tell each other when things are happening, like somebody's getting dug up over there, dug up over here. But I think other plants can do the same thing. I was just talking about, I was talking with somebody about how, grass, when it there's a smell when grass gets cut.
Yes.
Right. And
they actually now sell it in bottles as perfume, and it's like $300. We live in a great society, people. Yeah.
But that what's happening when grass gets cut is they're releasing chemicals to make that smell to tell other grass that they're being cut. It's like a warning system. It would be like a monkey howling or a dog barking. That's what's happening with grass. So they're communicating.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like there's like that symbiotic relationship that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's the idea and precedence when you look at anything being formed or anything created. It all stems from ideas. It all stems from places of ingenuity, something that comes out of the box. And a lot of those things are very foreign to us. The same way that how these plants have been able to manipulate the ground, forests, rainforest, dry lands, whatever, is very alien. Like, yeah, it's based here in Earth, but if you look at everything outside of our known, our known planet, these things exist outside as well.
Right.
It's not like specific to this planet and this planet only. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it too much, to be honest with you. I mean, I always wonder, there's so many things happening, when do we separate it and say, oh, well, this is, because we don't really know too many other places that do things. So therefore that kind of limits our purview, right? So,
but it doesn't mean that they don't exist, right? That's the thing,
right? But I'm just saying we can't say, well, on Alpha Centauri the grass doesn't make a smell, so we don't have anything to compare it to. So we just assume everything that's happening on this planet is native to this planet, which, to be honest with you, I mean, you want to get into aliens and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we could talk about anything. We could talk about fucking Doritos and Taco Bell.
No, I'm just saying.
That's the whole, yeah.
But what I'm saying is we are the outliers.
Yes.
So why aren't we the aliens? Because is there anything, I mean, aside from Bigfoot, which people go back and forth on, there's nothing else really that walks on two legs. We don't want to get
political over here. Bigfoot is still a very heavy topic these days.
But there's nothing else that walks around on two legs and commands its environment like we do, and nothing else. I mean, other things do, change its environment somewhat, but not in the ways that we do. We are the outlier. And so to me, we're the aliens, because everything else seems to kind of go together. Right. So all the rest of these things, are, a little bit more symbiotic in their nature, the hierarchy of everything and the way it functions. Whereas, we're way out of line. There should be something, if you think about, chipmunks and squirrels and rabbits and all these little woodland creatures. They're all very, very similar and behave similarly and, get on with their lives and so forth. Whereas we are totally off the charts compared to anything like that.
We are. You talking about this just makes me think of Star Trek, and I'm going to be as old school as possible, like the OG series. In the OG series, there was this epoch where they talked about a highly advanced species that existed outside of physical form. And before they were like that, they had somewhat of a humanoid body, like in physical sense. And when they were creating known species and life throughout the universe, they made them in their own image.
Right.
Just kind of like, how our Bible kind of explains it in many ways.
Right.
So maybe like it doesn't necessarily mean the humanoids are special, like, because that is kind of a species. We are Homo sapiens. We come from, there were other types of species besides ours, but like maybe that is where some form of alien species. I like these theorized ideas. Like maybe that's the form of some alien species, like highly intelligent species, where they stand on two legs and they communicate through speech, or maybe telekinesis or some other type of form of communication. But like Gene Roddenberry was a fucking genius, man. But like that idea just still, like even 60 years later, is just, what if?
What if? Right. I mean, there's the infinite what ifs. I mean, that's the great thing, is that we can kind of think about all those things maybe bears are thinking about those things, and we just haven't tapped into that because they can't speak our language. Maybe all the bears, meet up before they hibernate and they're like, hey, did you think about this?
Don't dolphins communicate though with sonar?
They do. They do. And
that's pretty interesting.
If you think about one of the news story recently was killer whales, orcas, are one of the few species that literally will play with their food and like flip them out of the water before they eat them, and do some kind of ridiculous.
They've earned
things.
Their name. They've earned their name as being killer.
Like and then they hunt great white sharks, and so they'll coordinate.
Are you serious?
Yeah, this was a news story that just was recent.
Oh my God.
I know this years ago. So they're one of the few things that can kill a great white shark, and so they'll coordinate their attack because they don't have. They have the weight and the strength, but they don't have like the teeth so they'll beat them up basically, but they'll coordinate their attack to kill a great white with several orcas. Yeah, and so I think it's kind of an antiquated. And science is advancing, which is what science is supposed to do, is to kind of hold a line, and then whenever we get more information, it's supposed to advance. And thankfully, it's doing that. Now, in the past, I think they kind of held the line a little too tight. And so it's advancing to notice that, hey, all of these animals aren't just dumb. No. It's not all just instinctual. There is learned behavior. Otters use rocks to crack abalone to eat. That's a tool. Crows will use tools to break open seed pods to eat.
Also, crows can mimic speech. They can also differentiate between, this is bananas. I was reading this article. They did a study with crows where they can differentiate between different objects. They can tell if something's food. They can tell if something is heavy. And they use that information to figure out how to get those items. Like how close they need to fly, where they're supposed to be looking. Like, this is a bird.
Right.
This is a freaking bird.
Well, hawks and eagles and
those dives.
But they also take their prey up in the air and drop them.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't want to
fight. I saw it all the time. It's crazy.
They just grab them. They fly really high, and then they just fling them, and then of course gravity does the work. So if you think about that, that is a tool, right? Because you're using gravity. They figured out, guess what? If I fly high enough and I drop this rabbit, it's going to die. And when I come down to eat it, it's not going to bite my face. And I mean,
intelligence.
Yeah,
It's a
there's
form of
something
intelligence.
there, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So, I mean, the weird thing is I've actually seen it happen. So I see a hawk grab a snake and fly away, and then it just drops it onto the road.
It's amazing. Like, I grew up in New York. It was completely, I remember I watched this hawk. I'll never forget this. It was attacking this raccoon family, like on the side of the highway. And you think like, oh, it's just one hawk. Like a few minutes later, you had like 6 or 7 hawks.
Right. Yeah.
Just like, hey, one after the other.
A smorgasbord over here.
A smorgasbord. When's the wedding? I want to get the main course, please.
We got some veal. We got some raccoon veal down here, young one.
Oh my God.
But there's so many examples, I mean, of this, and even if you take away some of these kind of things, just the fact that, bees burrow into the ground in wintertime, and cicadas have a cycle of so many years 7 years, I think it is, where they bury themselves and then come back out. I mean, all of this it can't be totally instinctual, because, at some point, some cicadas had to come to the brink of extinction to say, hey, guess what? If I go down in the dirt deep enough, I won't be affected by this shitty weather that's going on. And so, instinct or learned, it becomes, the lines blur a little bit, I think, because it's, some of this has to have some kind of processing behind it.
It does. And, my idea of this, and a lot of it is like based off of like research and things I've heard over the years. We live on an organic spacecraft that is flying through space.
Hurtling
through space. And we know pretty well that comets, asteroids, certain structures like these can house certain cells or eggs or whatever the case may be, frozen. And they, on occasion, do enter into our atmosphere.
Sure.
The idea is that we have so many things that have had to adapt to this environment, this organic spacecraft, if you will. Pretty much nothing is from this place.
Probably not. I mean, over time, yeah.
Right. It came over here, developed, and formed the way that it is now. I'm getting just like a basic understanding of all. Like, definitely there's a more complex explanation to all of this, but like, it's not cut and dry. Like what you were getting at too is like, there's so many elements to this. There's so many different things and just so many different ways and survival tactics and intelligence and communication. There's so much.
I know.
There's so much.
And the other fact is we have, fairly short lifespans if you look at the Earth and everything that's changed over the billions of years that it's been around, our time here is very short, and we've had no recording except for the last, 10,000, 15,000 years. So it's even shorter, right? We don't have, it's not like we can go back. Let's look back in the record 1.5 million years and see what was happening back then. We don't know. I mean, everything's a guess. I mean, we do dig things up and do,
core sampling. They do LiDAR these days.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's still, we're not talking about millions of years of truthful written history to go by. You know what I mean?
It's always changing.
Yeah.
It's always changing. It's always evolving. It's always advancing. It's never,
I think we are just right now. So this is, going to be one of those AI speeches, but we are just now at the cusp of being able to catalog everything efficiently. And AI is part of that, right? So the fact that we have computers and we can have computers do a lot of databasing and then be able to draw on those databases and so forth, which is all AI is right now, is that this is the beginning of being able to go that 1,000,000-year stretch. Prior to this, I mean, there wasn't enough animal hides in the world to write everything down. So So this is the point of entry, really. We're at the very,
And
early stages of being able to catalog enough to be useful in the future.
do you know, to your point regarding like advancement, I love those people that get into the conversation about, protecting animals and make sure they're not being um, mistreated or harmed. I'm totally on board with that. The thing that people don't understand is a lot of these farm animals have been modified for farming.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They, like, what do I mean by this? Like, I'm talking about a molecular level. Like, they sit in labs, and I've spoken to scientists about this too. And it's not necessarily like, some of it is put to really good use. Like, a great example is to make sure that you don't get poisoning from milk.
Right.
There used to be certain pathogens and diseases that used to form in milk, and even though it's processed and refrigerated and homogenized, it still can pass, and people could get sick. So there's a lot of benefits to this.
You can still get sick from raw milk now because cows don't take a shower every day, and they basically shit all over themselves.
Yeah, and roll in it just like pigs. Just like pigs.
Yeah. So, everything gets in when you're milking the cow. Everything goes whatever's down there goes with it. So,
but
yeah.
It's really interesting because, like, who would ever think that we could reach a point where not only like we have abundance of everything, but we're able to almost literally control our environment. I wouldn't say very well. I personally, I don't think we're doing a great job, but
well, what's the problem that you have? What's the specific issue?
I grew up in upstate New York, so there were people that were further up that used to come down on the weekends or during the week. That used to know my dad that lived in the farmlands, and we used to go out there too. And it's weird watching farmers. This has always been weird, just spraying pesticides and herbicides,
right?
And all of this is, and I remember I'm outdoors, and some of this like is kind of splattering, and I remember this too. They call it the itch. That's what it's called. It's called the itch. And I remember like just walking back, down to the main road. I'm just itching my arms.
Right.
Then you like think to yourself, wait a minute. If this is itching my arm right now, and it's like pretty bad, it's like kind of like get a hive. Why am I putting that on my food?
Well, they want to keep the bugs off.
At what cost?
I know, at what cost?
At what cost? You know what I'm saying? So there's like, it's almost like nature's ultimate middle finger. You know, it's like we're trying to like play with it with our biological and physical computers, whereas nature does it in an organic and super complex way, and we're just like, we alter it. But then there's so many other things that comes with it. It's like nature's like, nah, like escape. It's just pressing that button over and over again.
Yeah, well, and then, I mean, unfortunately, the worst thing about pesticides is it gets in the groundwater, and then and then
poisons
over the
water.
years it builds up because the half-lives are too long, and then the next thing you know, you're drinking the pesticides and you don't even know it, and then and it causes damage internally to you, and then it's kind of round and round you go, and then they're like, well, wait, we got to combat these pesticides, so we're gonna treat the water, and then they treat the water
with fluoride, and then not realizing you can't drink that stuff,
and then eventually you get so much of that in you. So I mean, it is. I think overall, I would say the fact that we haven't had mass deaths means that we're trying to do the best we can. But unfortunately, to do better would be to go back, a few steps and say, okay, we probably ought to stop. The reason we're doing this is to stop this. Well, how can we stop that? And then just work your way back to the beginning of things and find out what's the best, way to end this cycle. Unfortunately, and we can get into this territory.
Yes,
you
please.
Have a little thing
Let's get into all kind of territories. Hello.
You have a little thing called capitalism. And so everybody wants to make their money. And so you can't knock out these steps because guess what? That knocks out the money. And so then now you have capitalism fighting environmentalism and all these other isms, and you make no headway. And I think that is, it would be, if you remember, and they don't actually go by this edict anymore. Google had a thing called do no evil, right? That was their edict whenever they started the Google company search engine. Do no evil.
That sounds like something I would hear on a way, to like a Satan's acceptance speech.
But they don't do that. They don't talk. They used to talk about it more. They don't talk about it anymore. They don't go by that anymore. But I mean, if we had an edict as the human race to say, let's do the least amount of harm possible, and we stuck by it, right? That's the mantra. Then we would not be in the situations that we find ourselves in all these different places. I mean, there's literally, True. I don't know if you've ever looked into this, but there are chemicals in foods in the United States that aren't allowed in Europe.
100. There's more, but at one point it was 132 that were banned in Europe. There's a lot more than that these days. I think it's like 500.
Think about it. So what's the difference? I mean, like, are we like super people over here that can take anything? I mean, why did they decide it wasn't good? And now over here, like, whatever. Well, honestly, give the kid, babies can have guns. Why not?
I think it also has to do with size. When you look at Europe is a lot smaller in population than it is in the United States.
I know, but it doesn't matter. Everything's compartmentalized, right?
Oh, so
people love to, I mean, I'm not going to bash you for saying that because that's what people do say. But here's my comeback.
I'm just
to
like
that.
Trying to see both sides of it. Yeah.
So they are like, well, we have so many more people than Europe does. Bullshit, right? Wisconsin is the size of, some European country.
Like Germany?
Yeah, and it has the same amount of people. You already have a government of Wisconsin that should be doing the things for Wisconsin, and they generate funds for Wisconsin, right? Everything is compartmentalized. So now they're doing apples and oranges. They're saying, oh, the United States is so much bigger than Germany. No, yeah, you're right. But guess what? Any one of the states is probably, Rhode Island, for Christ's sake, is way smaller. Why isn't Rhode Island taking care of this? Everybody loves to make that comparison to where they're like, well, they don't have to worry about it as much. Well, guess what? Rhode Island doesn't have to worry about as much. They take in money. And so the argument falls apart because you're doing an apples and oranges comparison. If you start comparing, I mean, chances are Germany is probably the size of a bunch of states with the same amount of populations, which means, guess what? All is possible.
Yeah, honestly, like a great example I live in Florida. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you learn when living in Florida is that the government out here is insanely corrupt, but in the type of corruption where they only care about business infrastructure. That is the mindset of Floridian government. It's just business structure.
Most governments, yeah.
But they do it in a way where it mostly emphasizes on multi-billion industries, such as entertainment,
Walt Disney
Company, Universal, like there's a bunch of others. Banking is a very big thing out of it. Mm-hmm. One thing which is insane out here, and I'm kind of one of those that get on the cannabis train, is Florida has done the exact opposite what California has done. What they've done is they've created a business lock on medical cannabis to the point that they have created a way that it is nearly impossible for anybody in the entire state of Florida to not only do any business with anybody outside of the because obviously it's not federally legalized, but they cannot produce it unless it's under specific government supervision by government personnel. So basically, it's like having your own personal cartel by your farm, just with a U.S. government military uniform.
But that's the same for
it's crazy.
Whoever produces your energy, your electricity, whoever produces your gas, whoever takes your garbage.
Oh my God.
Whoever does your cable television. I mean, you name it, telephones. There
tapped.
is
Patriot
governmental
Act. Yeah.
monopolies in every state all over based on these internet, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's, kind of the norm, really. And it's unfortunate because they all preach capitalism, competition breeds the best thing for the consumer. And then when you look at things, you're like, wait a minute, they're all monopolies. All the big ones are monopolies. Walt Disney World has a monopoly because they basically run that whole area of Florida that they exist in.
Yeah.
You can't go and say, I'm going to set up, they wouldn't sell you the land anyway, but you know what I mean? And then the government caters to them because they're so big. And same thing with Universal, same thing with a lot of different things down in that part of the world.
Yeah.
But that is, it's funny because there's not, what do you want to say? There's absolutely no way at this point for you to say, I'm going to create the next Disney World. It ain't going to happen in Florida for you.
No.
You got to go someplace else. So that tells you, if you think about it, as far as the government goes, that the government's pulling for Walt Disney World. They're not pulling for the little guy. Even though everybody likes to say, oh, anybody can make it happen. The reality is no, anybody can't make it happen.
You yourself can make whatever you want to happen. I'm a libertarian. I'm the type of person, not politically, I'm just libertarian. I come from a very left-wing perspective, and my mindset has always been where, let me live my life, respect me, and I will respect you. I believe that you can be someone that's creative and passionate and be able to be explorative and be open and all of those things. There's a reason why we have the underground, we have indie films, we have underground music and artists and, one-man bands, and there's a lot of different avenues. And it's not where any of these people are trying to change the world. They're trying to make something for themselves. That's it. Like, it's you against the world. So what are you going to choose? Going to choose like the 8 billion people, or are you going to choose yourself? And it's like, there's so many things you can do in that like short little life that we have. What do you want to do with it? You want to waste it, or you want to have some fun? Because I want to have some fun.
Sure. I mean, everybody gets a choice to a certain extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are limits to everything, but yeah, but I mean, getting back to the environment and government and everything.
Oh, yes.
Is that, we don't, this is one of these arguments that is hard for people to fathom, right? So I don't know exactly, like, do you live in a house? Do you live in an apartment? What's your situation?
I live with my mom. I live in a condo in Boca Raton.
So you got a condo, right? So like an apartment. So you have this very, in regards to the rest of even just the United States, this very tiny piece of the world that is yours, right? But if you think about it, you just don't even think about the world. Just think about the United States, right? If they try to kind of hone everybody down into the smallest space possible. And if you want to have a bigger space, it's going to cost you a lot. But the reality is, even in the United States, everybody could probably have 100 acres to themselves because there's that much land. Individually, there's millions upon millions upon millions of acres of land. Now, it all isn't in Florida.
No.
Some of it's better than others.
Definitely not in Florida, I guarantee. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, the interesting thing is, and that's what government does, is keep everybody kind of honed in. That's where all the regulations come. Property regulations are massive, right? So, but if you were really for the people, then you would let the people do, give the people the means to do what they want to do. But that's not what happens. You want to hone them all in, keep them all in the smallest space possible. You can never be self-sufficient. ever. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because we just have an incredible amount of space. Everybody talks about overpopulation and this and that. No, there's no overpopulation. It's just everybody wants to live in this particular area because it's got the beach, because it's got this, because it's got that.
Don't worry, I'm moving at the end of the year. I'm out.
Oh, you're out? Okay. The reality is that there's more than enough space for everybody to have plenty of space, but it's not allowed. The government is probably the biggest landowner of land in the United States. And that's public lands and parks and all this kind of stuff.
Well, which is great, but they own all land. Okay, the crazy thing is, like, when people think when you buy a house.
Oh well, yeah.
Okay, you technically own the land, but if you have an FBI SWAT team that comes to your house and says get out, and they have legal document and tender to say that this property is now theirs, you have to leave.
Right. It's not yours anymore.
It's not yours anymore. So you gotta take that with a grain of salt.
Well, you basically get it for the time that you follow the rules, pay your taxes, and are alive.
Good child.
Yeah.
Here's a lollipop.
That's it. So you never really own it. And I think, the funny thing is that probably the Native Americans had the better system with land, which means they had these huge territories and they moved around them at different points in the year for the weather or for the migration of food, or agriculture. But they had huge portions of land. They just kind of clumped together because that was the best way to survive.
Or you do what they did out here in Florida, the Seminole Nation. Become one of the biggest, richest tribes in the United States.
Well, that has to do with gambling.
Yeah, they make a lot of money.
Right. And that was, but they're heavily taxed and who in the end is the winner of that? I mean, I know they've got a lot of money and everything, but guess who they pay to every year?
Yeah.
And then where does that go?
Who knows? Cambodia? Another transgender study on
I don't know.
Lions? Maybe tigers or bears or oh my?
Whatever. It gets lost in the wash. And
it does.
And so, it's just one of those facts of life is that and really this has only happened for the last maybe 100 years, maybe a little bit more, 150 years.
Give or take,
government's role has been so all-encompassing. It's not been that way for the whole time. It's kind of just this monster that keeps growing. It'll eventually devour itself.
The crazy part, though, is it's like none of the other ones work. It's like we see where communism goes. We definitely see where fascism goes. Oh, boy. And socialism has its benefits, but like there's a lot of like selling your soul to the devil that comes with that too. It's like almost like capitalism has a lot of problems and issues, but it's like the lesser of all evils. It's just as bad as the rest of them, but it's the least evil out of the evils. Damn, I cannot believe I just said that.
I mean, maybe there's something we haven't tried. I mean, we haven't got a word for it yet.
We need the aliens, man. That's what they've been flying around and observing us. They need to come down, bro. They got to come down.
Come down
and make peace with us.
I mean, it may be that there's something that we haven't tried that would work better, but no one's trying it or no one's allowing it to happen. Because of current situation and everything, what gets batted around a lot is we are the only, nation of means that doesn't have universal health care. United States. Why don't we have that? If ever all these other places have it, and the argument usually is, well, we got a lot more people. And it's like, no, all of them doing it, which means they have a lot more people. Right? Because, and granted, right, you're going to say, well, I don't get as good a care because you hear horror stories, right? But
Yeah.
But every one of those places, and I mean, you can look into it. Every one of those places has private healthcare that if you are wealthy enough, you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
The same system. Right now, we have the wealthy enough and we don't have the universal. And so, to me, that's one of those things where it's like, you got to read the room, folks. Everybody's doing it and it's working on a certain level, right? Infant death is lesser. All these other issues that are like early detection are lower. And that's all based on the fact that they get universal. Now, when you get into the point where you need a new liver or you need new lungs or you need, brain surgery or something, yes, they fall off. But the reality is, chances are you in a for-profit world are still going to die too, because you aren't going to have the money and you're going to bankrupt your family. And then guess what? Then that is a domino that falls. And where does it fall on? It falls on the government. And so it's another one of these things where you have to go, look apples to apples, because I think the reality is that we're doing ourselves more harm by not having it with the rest of the world has it, because we're not taking care of these problems that cause other problems. This is like the domino effect, like the chemicals.
It is. I think a lot of what it stems from is the fear of a lot of these scenarios get done state by state. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be real honest. If you had universal healthcare in this country, I guarantee you Florida's going to be the worst out of any other state.
Well, and you can move it to a different state, I suppose.
Right. But the philosophy is then, like, people get angry. It's like, well, what happens if I don't want to move? The truth is, there are going to be negatives with all these different things. It's just how it's implemented. It's like, yeah, it's probably going to have to be done by a state-by-state basis, but you still have people in those states, okay, that can stand up and say, no, we should not be doing it this direction. Like, we need to make sure that if, for example, you have a state where it has very heavily dense populated places and they're having problems with doctors and nurses, okay, we need universal healthcare. Maybe we should build more clinics, right?
Yeah.
There's fixes to all of these problems. There's excuses to make sure nothing gets done because they're great. Excuses mean you don't have to spend any money.
Well, okay, let's talk about money real quick.
Oh,
we are trillions of dollars in debt as a country, right? Which, you know what that tells me? It tells me money doesn't mean anything.
No.
Because you can be trillions of dollars in debt and still be a viable, solvent country that leads the world. The dollar leads the world. And it's trillions of dollars in debt and you're leading the world. That tells me that money is really immaterial.
It's a fiat if they want to currency. Do it, it's crazy.
If they want to do it, that means they're going to do it, right? Who cares? Let's say we're $2 trillion in debt. I can't remember what the debt is right now, but we're trillions of dollars. Let's do universal healthcare. Add another trillion. Who cares? We're never going to pay it off in our lifetimes. You know what I mean? We're still number one. But now you're helping people. You know what I mean? And guess what? You don't have to take away from the billionaires because you just add to your debt. Who cares? Obviously, we don't care now because we still got it. No one's doing anything about, they're talking about doing things to get rid of it. But the reality is, how long have we had it now?
I mean, they've been talking about universal healthcare since Kennedy. I mean, Kennedy was one of the first people to start talking about it.
Because that's whenever the world was doing it. And we weren't, and so it's always been on the table, but nobody's doing it.
Like, from my own personal experience, I have needed a root canal for about 7 years. Okay.
Oh my Lord!
I'm 26. I've needed a root canal for about 7 years.
Oh, like a cat.
She's adorable. I know we got 2 cats. I've never been able to do it because I can't afford it.
Right.
Because in this country, dentistry is a luxury. Okay. It's not a
It is still,
necessity.
yeah.
It's a luxury.
And even if you have dental insurance, it's never great.
They want $2,000 to $3,000. It's like, put it on. I love this. They're always like, put it on a credit card. Put it on a credit card. Let's put it on a credit card.
Well,
I'm like, you want to
be just like the country. Just get yourself in tremendous debt.
It's crazy. But it's wild because you could go across the Mexican border. I mean, right now it's a little hard, but you can go across the Mexican border and get the same procedure for $400. Maybe like a better doctor, like $700.
Yeah.
So
or go to Turkey and get all new teeth.
Yeah, like it just goes to show that it's not about care. It's about money. Because dentist schools in this country, okay, specifically here in the United States, it has to be a specialty school. So these dentists have to spend $300 to $500, sometimes even $1 million for financial aid, all the schooling they got to go through, and then they have to open up a practice. And then this is the wonderful thing we love about the pharmaceutical industry. They make sure that all the costs for dental supplies are triple the amount of any other type of medical supplies. I know this because a dentist told me this.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
I was just blown away by this. And I'm like...
Because it's profitable. It's a profitable industry. And people will pay it.
The man was 67 years old, and he was still paying off his student debt.
Well, I would say he probably wasn't doing it right, but that's okay.
Well, he was a good doctor. Like, he was the type of person that if you need an emergency procedure, you'd come there and, like, he'd take care of you. Sure. It's sad because you have those good people that just get butchered by the system. Just butchered.
But yeah, I mean, that's another thing, dental health and mental health and all this stuff. The thing, when I mentioned universal, I don't mean that you're going to get every procedure that you want to have for free. It means that you're going to get a baseline of care that is going to make sure that something like your root canal doesn't elevate. Because with not getting a root canal, here's what you're throwing yourself potential. You can get an infection. You get an infection in your mouth. What's close to your mouth? Your brain.
Your brain, your nasal cavities. You can get an infection
that goes up into your brain, and then you're totally fucked. So I'm just telling you.
I know.
So, but if you can prevent that, then you're preventing the higher cost of something in the future with having some kind of baseline thing. And I don't want to become the guy that talks about healthcare, because I'm not, but I'm just because the topic came up, I'm like, it really is smart money. It's smart money. And why this country isn't doing it is beyond me. Whenever you look around, I could see if it was the 70s and only, half the countries were in on this and it wasn't working. And you got to make a decision. You're like, screw that.
You mean like their excuse with not changing over to the metric system, which, by the way, was the stupidest way that they did it. I'm like...
Yes, we should all be metric at this point as well.
I know. I'm pretty familiar. Like, one thing that, like, you learn over time is being able to develop skills. It's like... It's not where we're talking about being able to change the world. It's being able to observe and see all the things around us. And like, there's going to be a lot of things that are bad, a lot of things that suck. And you're right. Like, these things do need to get fixed. But
the bad thing is they can all be fixed now.
Yeah.
They couldn't be fixed. They couldn't be fixed 30 years ago. But at this point in time, all these are easily fixable. And the amounts of money that we're talking about is not so astronomical that the problem with having something like universal dental or universal healthcare is not really the money that's going to be spent to do it. It's the fact that we don't have enough people to do it. Right. So you have a population that's huge and you don't have that many dentists and doctors and nurses. And so then you have to put initiatives in place to make them. Right. And so that's the first step. You get incentives in place to make all these people, to have this be an interest, to have people go to college and learn all this stuff and then put them out into the field. And then it's a whole kind of system that has to be created. And I think that's what everybody's scared by, because you can't just, if you just threw it out there and said, we're going to have it, it would fail because there's not enough. Because what we aren't paying attention to is every day people are dying that don't need to die because they can't get things that other people can get.
Yeah.
And so, if you start bringing them into the equation, then everything becomes overwhelmed. And so, but unfortunately, if you really are going to be a government for the people, that's what you have to do. And there are people who we can figure this out. It's not, it's not rocket science, as they say. No. You can say, okay, we need to have X number of these specialties in these places in order to handle the load of our population. There's people that do these projections all the time. I mean, they do them for fucking highways, for Christ's sake. They can do them for people. They're building highways. You'll see a highway get built and not get used for 10 years. And you know why? Because it's not for that 10 years. It's for the next 10 years. And you see that kind of stuff happening all the time. You're like, why are they building all this infrastructure in the middle of nowhere? Well, because the projections say that we're going to need it in another 20 years. We just need to turn that focus over to a different thing, and it will happen.
I'm in the automotive industry. It's wild because the automotive industry does not have enough technicians. And it's not that there's enough mechanics. The problem is that there's not enough people that specialize in these cars, particularly being able to work with electronics and understanding how new cars work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's insane because, I have like instructors and I've like talked with people, even certain businesses. It's so corrupt. It's insanely corrupt. Like the business practices, the tactics that they do to customers, like particularly as automotive technicians. I had this experience myself where, and I'm spreading this out to people right now. This is a known thing that they go on. In order to make more money off of warranty repairs, what they'll do is partial repair. So they'll replace just a part of the component, or if it's like a rubber piece, like a bushing or something, they won't replace that. That way, if something does happen, you come back. They can put it again in as that so that they can continue making money off of that. That warranty, because that's how the warranties work, is if you put that in first and you continue putting in, they make more money off of it because it's considered like a continuous. This is insane. This is insane. This is people that need cars to take their kids to daycare. These are people that have vehicles that, I don't know, they're going on a hunting trip with their son or something. These are people that are driving back and forth, to get to work or whatever. This is people's lives. This is people's lives. And just to see like that type of behavior and knowing that, like, obviously I'm not going to be that type of person. I'm going to take the type of experience that I have and wherever that takes me. But seeing that scares the living shit out of you. It just wakes you up just a little bit to smell the roses.
Consumers. We're not people. We're consumers.
Yeah, you're not people. Consumers.
That's why they have the word.
It's a terrible word. I don't like it.
You consume, so they want you to keep consuming. And so they have to, manipulate the system so that you continue to consume. That's why things have, planned obsolescence and things are built to break, and, warranties don't last that long. And, you have to buy things on a cycle, because it all keeps gooses the economy.
It does. It's crazy. Just like think about things not lasting. I have a record player that was one of, it's from 1979. It was imported from Japan. It's in mint condition. This thing turns on. You could plug it in, works like a champ. I have like a radio that's like over 69 years old, works fine. Just put in some new batteries. It turns on. you can physically see that with your own eye. You can physically see how there was a time where you bought something and it would last you 60 years.
Yeah. Well, because they weren't worried about this because nobody had anything. And so we were all new customers. And so the problem has been when everybody's got everything, you have to, how do I get the next sale? Because there's not, as they push these consumer goods, down into the, for lack of a better term, the lower economic statuses, right? Then they have to figure out a way to churn the product. And so they make a crap product so that you have to buy a new one, or they make it disposable. And so then, just like televisions and VCRs and disc players and now, radios and album, vinyl players, it's just like everything's like, that's why you have the new phone all the time. That phone is perfectly good and will work for many, many years, but they hold back the improvements because they can make phones a lot better than they do.
And they make sure that they break.
And well, that's why they put it all glass. I mean, heck, what do you expect?
No, but what's crazy, I had an iPhone before this one, and and I never knew this was a real thing. It reaches a point where when it decides that it no longer can supply the battery, it kills itself.
Right, yeah. Because then now you have to get another one. Software changes, everything changes.
It's insane. I was like, it was like $700 for a new one. I'm like, I just got this phone like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean it just killed itself?
But this is you talk about capitalism works. This is where capitalism doesn't work for the consumer.
True.
Because you're constantly, forced into a predicament to where you're like, I just got this phone for 2 years and now it's crap. And it's like, that is the negative of capital. They should, I'm surprised they haven't. I mean, they kind of do it a little bit through the phone providers. Just pay your $10 and just get a new phone every time they come out, or whatever it is, more than $10. But you know what I'm saying? And basically just rent it because that's all you're doing. You're not buying anything. You're just renting.
It's the same thing like leasing.
Land, just like everything else. So let's just call it what it is, and do that. And then, they've gotten forced into doing it because of recycling and laws and so forth that have come down. But the reality is it's always been that way. Before you just throw it into the landfill, and now with everything's come down, like, well, no, you need to recycle it. And so then they put these things in place. Well, you can send this worthless phone that you paid $700 for back to us and we'll take care of it. Hey, guess what? That saves us money. We start pulling all those stuff apart. We reuse everything and we're saving money, but you're not. And it gets to be, it's crazy, but people do it and we're all compliant, right? The reality of it is, I always joked. Do you remember the Area 51 thing a few years ago? They're like, they can't stop us all if we all storm the gates of Area 51. Right? You remember that?
I would not recommend that. There is
no, I don't recommend it either.
Ex-military and like high up security.
But it was kind of a bit of a meme and a bit of a thing a few years ago. Same thing. If everybody just decided one day, guess what? We're not going to take it anymore. Things would change. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm not going to pay. They wouldn't do it because they couldn't, but because we're all addicted to this kind of stuff. But if they could, you'd say everybody just like, nobody renew their phones. Everybody just drop out of the digital revolution. And boy, oh boy, would things change quickly.
It's just, there's also this sense of like honing into nostalgia. You've always got that person that drives like a vintage car, or that one person that's got like, vintage furniture in their house or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've always loved those people because like they're sometimes like the most open-minded and like, I could talk to them about what we've been talking about, and it's It's amazing. They're just, the type of people that always have a positive outlook, even though like they know how doom and gloom everything is. But they work so hard so they can have like that yellow canary refrigerator because that like makes them happy, or that like 1955 T-bird. It's because like it's the same of staying real in the reality of it all. It's like I have enough to do this, and
Well, unfortunately that's the attitude that you have to have. You have to say, you got to say, okay, what's my top 5 things that make me feel good or make me happy? And then
besides
that's what
drugs,
I need to concentrate.
Yeah.
Well,
and alcohol.
That could be one of your top 5. I'm not saying that's not. And then you have your top 5, and then you just stick to those, and anything that falls off that list, you don't worry about, because chances are you've got enough money for those. And if everybody took that approach, then we'd all probably be happier people. But the problem is you get marketed to 24/7 on all these other things that you don't have or will never have
or don't need,
and people buy into the hype. And once you bought into the hype, then you're caught. You're like a fish. You're caught and you're reeled in, and then you get stuck on this wheel. So but honestly, I don't know if the logic in the world is such that if you just look at the government, there's absolutely no reason to not have debt, because the government has such tremendous debt. So everyone should just charge as much as they can, as fast as they can, as high as they can get away with, because that's the way everything's operating. They don't want you to do that. But if you're looking at the example, that's what's happening. So
it's a mind fuck.
It is.
It's a beautiful mind
It's
fuck.
always a do as I say, not as I do. Everything in the world is do as I say, not as I do.
I've always tried to figure out like the number one thing with I've been around veterans, and they sometimes will say some of the darkest shit you'll ever hear in your life, but they're some of the most warmest and most wonderful people. And some of these people have been through hell. Sure. I mean, they've seen shit that I don't think any of us want to see. And they were put through the mill.
Right. And then they get hassled when they want to go to the VA.
Yeah.
Or, they end up living on the street because of circumstance, and then they're hassled because they're homeless.
I know. But there's so much to learn from those kind of people too. It's like, you think that trauma and pain and misery is the thing that will always keep you down. And the thing is, sometimes you're more resilient than you think you are.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you just have to be able to know your strengths and weaknesses.
We're constantly getting beat down by the world. I mean, not just people in military, but everybody. It's you suffer through school, then you decide if you're going to suffer through more school to do something else, or you go out into the world, and you get into the world, and until you find that tolerable fit, you bounce around from place to place. And it's all a struggle. And I personally think it's a very unnecessary struggle. You don't need to be, everybody doesn't need to struggle like this. And some of it's self-inflicted, right? Some of it, people struggle because they're just their own worst enemy. And some people struggle because of circumstance. But overall, it's really quite avoidable in a broader sense. All of this can be avoided. We literally have the technologies to make a better world. We've had them for quite some time, for over 20 years, I would say. Literally, McDonald's could feed everyone in the United States easily.
They kind of do.
Because they have the infrastructure, they have the means, they have the methods, they've honed it all down, right? So, the government's, we just talked about the government stealing your property and everything. Take it, McDonald's is the way to do it. Take it and then feed everybody. There's nothing stopping the government from doing that. Is to take all those methods, that whole thing, and just say, guess what? We got a bigger problem. We got to feed everybody. So you can either work with us or we're just going to take it. Because that's what they do. And, so you can house everybody. There's ample ways that you can house people. We could do that in a heartbeat. If everybody needs a house, we could, even if you're just like 4 people to a lot in little tiny houses, we could do it. Easily done.
I mean, there's definitely a trend with tiny houses, all over TikTok. And it's crazy? Like the new trend is renting homes. It's like there are homes that are built just for renting.
Sure.
I'm like, so you want people to just keep on paying forever?
Yes, that's capitalism.
It's great. I mean, just let me write my name down. Let me just sign this. I'll take that house. No.
I mean, that's the point of it is, you have people who want to generate, and then you have people who have to pay. And if there's not enough payers and then too many generators, it doesn't work. So you always have to have the payers. And so the system is all geared towards keeping that equation even, to where you don't have too many people that have enough money to become something other than payers, consumers. That's, but all these things are easily, we have the mechanism now to solve, name anything, transportation. We can make mass transportation available for everybody. We could literally make cars available for everybody. There's enough cars sitting on lots that if you just gave them away to people, everyone could have a car. Right? There's enough food in restaurants. If everybody can eat. There's enough space for, rentals and hotels and everything to put everybody up somewhere. But we don't do it because that's not the system.
Thinking about this, I wonder what the aliens hovering up in the sky right now, observing our planet, is thinking about. Like, I get they're observing us, but like, are we that interesting to visit?
No, I firmly believe at this point. So number one, I'll put it out there. I do believe that there are aliens. I do believe they've already been here. They've been to the planet. They've observed. They've done things. And I think we are probably one of the least interesting things on the planet.
So they're not here for us?
No. If they were here for us, we would know it.
What are they here for? That is a great question. Then what are they here for?
Why do you go on vacation?
To relax.
Okay. We're a destination. We're someplace that maybe we're the only place that has trees in the galaxy.
I come to see the trees.
I come to see the trees. Honestly, honest to God, if we were the focus, then I think we are not the focus of what all these things want. We're just in the way.
I think there was a point where we were on their radar. I
maybe,
like when you take like, for example, like Egyptian history. I mean, even as an empire, there's so many deeper layers to it, and like their mentioning of like outer world species, like let alone their understanding. Yeah, like they were thousands of years behind, but they had something that we didn't have, which is they all had a connection to something. They had like this deeper meaning of some kind,
I don't know. I don't know that they did.
No, but like, again, like I'm not saying like it's, they did pretty insane shit.
Sure.
I mean, let's be honest. Egyptians were kind of wild people, but it's just like baffling what these people did thousands of years ago. It's like, if I could think of 1,000 things that I want to do today, I don't think I want to mummify a cat. or mummify a person and put them in a sarcophagus. Like, sure. I don't want to be lifting this 30-ton piece of stone right here. Like, what were these people on in those days? Like ancient meth?
But you didn't. You also didn't have the organization, so there was a hierarchy.
Yeah.
There was there was also some. What do you want to call it? They don't necessarily think the Egyptians built the pyramids.
Might have not.
So maybe it's even a race and a whole different set of people who did all that work that don't have anything to do with the Egyptians. The big pyramids, the smaller ones, yes, but not the big ones.
Yeah, they
may have just stumbled upon them and then they started emulating. They think the Sphinx is actually older than the pyramids.
Yeah.
And so, I think the other problem is that there's a whole different system, right? So we have capitalism that, keeps the average person down. And they had, a hierarchy for kings and pharaohs and all that kept the average person down. And not even that, because now it's come to light that there was skilled labor and they were paid, who worked on some of these temples and things like that. They weren't slaves, they were skilled labor. And so it was much like capitalism in a way, because it's like, oh, I'm a stone carver. Okay, you want a stone carver? I'll be there and live there. And then my kids is going to be a stone carver because I'm going to teach them. And it was the whole kind of thing just like that. So yeah, I don't know that it's overly different, other than there wasn't a lot of alternatives. Like you talk about being in Florida, you want to go to California, right? It's not going to, you could save up a few grand and make it to California and find,
100 years ago, going from Florida to California was
insurmountable,
pretty dangerous. I mean, the chances of you dying was very high.
Yeah. Same thing with Egypt, that you live where you live, because where else am I going to live? There's no place. I don't even know of any place else. I mean, I know people who literally haven't been out of their neighborhoods their whole lives, and they have every opportunity to do so.
But they don't want to. People like being comfortable. I can say for myself, like being comfortable is the most amazing thing. Sure. Because it's such a negative at the same time, because making yourself comfortable limits you from exploring and experiencing things all around you. And I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual, but maybe there is reincarnation. Maybe there isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. What I care about is now. You were alive now.
Well, but I think to loop back into the alien thing, I mean, that's why maybe we're just another, like, maybe cats are more interesting. And that's why.
Oh yeah, they're much more interesting.
All that cat stuff came up is because the aliens that came down at that time were more interested in cats. Like, oh gosh, I guess we better focus on these cats because they're the cool thing. I mean, who knows? But I don't think that. I think that if we were the focus of any kind of alien interest or any, enemy or otherwise, more things would have happened that would be obvious. Whereas now it's just these fleeting kind of things. And I think I literally think it's just, hey, let's go see some cows, or let's go see some trees, or let's go check out how ants build an ant mound, or
kind of like when you stop at Shell, at the gas station, along on your journey. It's like, hey, honey, do you want to take a quick stop at Earth, or Arth? Oh, yes, the cows and the trees. Yeah. They're like, and they're just like hovering down and like, and then people are like, oh my God, UFO. And they just shoot off.
And then they're like, that was great. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because otherwise it doesn't seem to make sense. We're so, as a species, we're so selfish. We think that everything is centered on us, but the realities are that the world happens whether we're here or not, for everything. You talk about nature and so forth being this, we quantify nature as nature, right? It's the old woman in the commercials or what have you.
Mother Nature.
And
She's always
Mother
hot
Nature.
with big tits. Yeah, green tits. Yeah.
So, but the reality is the world happens whether we're here or not. It happens whether any of these animals are here or not, or plants are here or not. And I think that could be fascinating. We always want to think we're the fascinating ones, but maybe it's fascinating that there's bees. I don't know. I mean, maybe they want to watch bees pollinate. I mean, it could be anything.
The thing about it is, like, we live in a place that exists with cycles. A lot of different things interconnect with one another. The same way rocks and water play a very key role with working together, and everything kind of comes hand in hand. It's not necessarily that we're in control. That's just how it works, and the idea is also like almost a lesson of life. It's where if you try to manipulate and play, you could do whatever you want, but there's going to be consequences to your actions. You can climb Mount Everest tomorrow, but doesn't mean you're not going to die.
I would hesitate to guess that the ocean is probably the big interest for aliens, because there seems to be so many reports around the ocean. But the problem is we can't see what's happening in the ocean most days.
We can't. And the thing is like, we don't even know what's at the depths of the ocean.
Right. Maybe there's not a lot of water other places, and it's like, wow, this is like the water world for us. It's like a giant water park, and they just go shooting around out in the ocean. I don't know.
It's amazing.
To me, that makes more sense because there's so much of it.
There is.
And they can just go zip around, and no one would ever see it, above or below.
It's amazing. Honestly, I gotta tell you, Bob, like, we started with aliens, and I love like, we made sure to stick with aliens because aliens are cool, man. All right, aliens are cool.
We may never know in our lifetime why any of this is happening.
You know what? And honestly, like, I'm okay with that. I'm the type where I love to be able to explore and learn new things. And sometimes if there is an answer to certain questions, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's all going to happen. So it'll be fine.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, as long as the alien isn't picking you up and dropping you from a high altitude, you're good.
Or prying you from the butt cheeks down.
Because to me, that's the stereotypical thing, right? Is you get probed or whatever. But that's just like, a kid, collecting butterflies. They're just
like, mommy, can I pick that human?
Yeah,
I want to check that one.
I want one of each of what I'm trying to catch, and not just grab one.
That's hilarious. It's probably true. It's probably true. Like,
we like to think that we're all that or something, but the reality is we're not. Yeah. So
we're just. I mean, she's more interesting than I am, to be honest. Like, even though she can't talk, she's more expressive.
Exactly. Who knows what she's thinking? Maybe she's taking over the world right now. We don't know.
Probably. I forgot to ask you in this beginning. You're a podcaster, right?
Yeah.
What's your name of your podcast? And where can we find your amazing podcast?
I'll give you the spiel. So
please.
I've actually got 2 shows going right now. The one that's gone on the longest is called Static Radio, staticradio.com, at Static Radio on all the socials. And I'm doing something new here for the last, I don't know, 6 months or something, called Mondo Frico Podcast. And it's about, oddly enough, has UFOs, has paranormal, has cryptids. And we talk about, we randomly select a topic for each show. And my co-host on that, Rob, does a lot of research. And then I basically just sit in and chime in and be a smart ass.
You're like a sponge. You're like an oozing sponge. Soaking.
Kind of like I was doing here a little bit today. So,
Yeah.
But that's
government, alien, podcast, conspiracies, capitalism. We covered it, man.
And last episode was about the Mongolian death worm, which I don't think anybody's really heard about. But
no, it's a thing. I have not.
It's a thing. It can kill you if you're in the Gobi Desert, supposedly. So
I'm not going to go to the Gobi Desert.
Aliens may be interested in that. That's the only thing they're going to be interested in.
Maybe probing that one, figuring out where its butt cheeks are.
One of those bad boys. But that's what I've got going on. But I'm happy to talk about anything, obviously, as you can tell.
Oh, of course. Listen, there are conversations that are worthwhile to go down, and let me say, I will go there. I want to go there. I want to dig deep. Well, listen, Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I mean, we covered a lot.
Hopefully did. I can't even remember everything at this point. Yeah.
Nah, neither can I. That's okay. That's where our listeners. That's where they get involved. But to anybody out there want to check out more of Lost in the Groove, you can find us at Lost in the Groove Pod everywhere and anywhere you check out podcasts. All right, we'll catch you motherfuckers next week. Peace out.